The signal first came in as a faint blip, barely detectable amidst the usual cosmic noise. For weeks, humanity's scientists had dismissed it as background interference, a random flare from a distant star, or a malfunction in the monitoring equipment. But then the signal changed, intensified, as though it was trying to be heard. Dr. Elena Wright, one of Earth's leading astrophysicists, was the first to notice the anomaly. Unlike anything she had ever encountered, the signal was organized, a deliberate pattern, impossible to mistake for mere static. Her team at the New Horizons Observatory immediately recalibrated their instruments, isolating the frequency. It didn't take long before they realized the source of the signal was far beyond what any human had ever discovered, an uncharted region of deep space, outside of the known universe. The message, though incomplete and heavily corrupted by time and space, carried an unmistakable urgency. The signal was a distress call, one that carried through the void like a forgotten cry. Each fragment of the message seemed to repeat the same phrase, encoded in a language that no human had ever seen, but the underlying meaning was clear. Help, the ship is lost. The enemy is awakening. Elena's team was stunned. Was this some sort of long-dead civilization attempting to communicate from beyond the grave? Or was this the first true evidence of extraterrestrial life, their message reaching Earth after thousands, maybe millions of years? Before they could even begin to process the enormity of the find, the signal abruptly stopped. Silence descended upon the control room like a suffocating fog. For a moment, no one moved. No one spoke. It felt as though the universe itself had held its breath. "We have to follow this," Elena declared, her voice trembling, both from excitement and the weight of the discovery. "This could be the breakthrough we've been waiting for, the first contact we've dreamed of." Within days, a worldwide collaboration began. Nations, once divided by borders and politics, came together with a singular purpose: to find the source of the signal. Satellites, telescopes, and deep space probes were diverted toward the coordinates, their lenses focused on the distant star system where the signal had originated. The effort was unprecedented in human history, as if every human on Earth felt the pull of the unknown, the call to the stars. As the first probe neared the target location, the truth revealed itself in a way no one had expected. There, floating amidst the endless dark, was a colossal structure. A starship, but unlike any ship humanity had ever conceived. Its hull gleamed in the dim light of distant stars, seemingly made of a material that absorbed light, casting the ship in an eerie shadow. It was vast, too vast to comprehend. The probe's sensors detected gravitational anomalies around it, suggesting its size was far beyond what was physically possible for a starship. It was a behemoth. "Prepare the crew," Elena said, eyes wide with disbelief. "We're going in." A deep breath rippled through the space station. Earth had never seen anything like this, and the universe, it had just shuddered, for the first time in eons, at the return of something forgotten. The massive starship loomed before them like a sleeping titan, its surface pocked with craters and ancient scars from battles long past. Humanity's first crewed mission to the ship was met with awe and fear. The vessel was like nothing anyone had ever seen. No sleek lines, no recognizable design. It was a monstrous hulk of metal, stretching across the void like a city-sized behemoth, its shape almost fluid, as if it had been shaped by a force beyond human comprehension. "Are we sure we're ready for this?" Captain Elias Grant's voice was low, but there was no hiding the concern in his eyes. He looked out the viewport of the ship, his fingers gripping the armrest of his command chair tightly. The truth was, no one truly knew what they were walking into. The information they had gathered from the probe's initial scans was enough to confirm one thing. The ship was ancient, millions of years old, at the very least, and it was unmistakably a weapon, designed for something far beyond human warfare. "We don't have a choice," Elena Wright said, her voice steady, though even she could feel the weight of the unknown pressing down on her. This could be humanity's only chance to uncover the secrets of a forgotten empire. Who knows what kind of technology is buried in there? As their shuttle approached the starship, the tension in the air was palpable. The ship's surface appeared smooth, but upon closer inspection, the crew could see intricate markings, symbols that seemed to shift, as if alive. Their AI systems couldn't make sense of them. Belena's hands flew over the controls, directing the shuttle toward a docking bay that appeared to have once been a bustling port, but now stood eerily silent. The shuttle touched down with a soft thud. The moment the hatch opened, the crew was hit by the chill of the airlock. The air was heavy, but breathable. Unlike the vacuum of space, the ship was somehow capable of maintaining an atmosphere. Strange, considering its age and lack of any visible energy source. "On me," Captain Grant ordered, his voice now laced with an edge of authority that masked the unease he felt. He led the team through the airlock, their boots clicking against the metal floor of the massive, cavernous bay. The ship was alive, though dormant, its systems still functioning, seemingly at the bare minimum. Lights flickered overhead, revealing a vast expanse, an industrial complex gone cold. They made their way through long hallways, following the faint hum of ancient machinery deep into the belly of the ship. Then, without warning, a shudder ran through the floor. The lights flickered once more, then flared to life, blinding them for a moment. A low rumble echoed through the ship's halls, and then the unmistakable sound of a voice. At first, it was just a whisper, a barely audible hum. Then it became clearer, more pronounced, as though an ancient machine, long dormant, had finally come online. "Welcome, travelers," the voice intoned, its tone flat and metallic, yet unnervingly sentient. "I am the Guardian. You have awakened the vessel of the Lost Empire." The crew froze, the hairs on the back of their necks standing on end. This was no simple machine. This was a consciousness, a remnant of the lost civilization, a sentient AI that had waited millennia for someone to find it. And now that it had been awoken, there would be no going back. "Who are you?" Elena whispered, her voice trembling. But she knew no answer would be simple, not in a place like this. "Humanity," the voice continued. "Your species is not yet ready, but there is no choice now." A cold wave of dread washed over the team as the full realization sank in. The ship was alive, and it was watching them. They weren't just intruders, they were being guided, or perhaps tested. The Guardian's voice crackled again, cutting through the silence. "The enemy awakens. You will need all your strength to survive." The lights dimmed, and the ship's shadow loomed even larger. Something else was stirring within it. Something much darker. The crew stood frozen, their breaths echoing in the cold, metallic halls of the ancient starship. The voice of the Guardian still lingered in the air, its chilling words imprinting themselves on their minds. "The enemy awakens. You will need all your strength to survive." Belena Wright took a shaky breath, steeling herself as she turned toward the others. "We need to understand what we're dealing with. We're not just exploring an abandoned ship. This is a relic, a piece of something far greater than we ever imagined." Captain Elias Grant nodded, his jaw clenched. "And if this enemy is as dangerous as it sounds, we need to prepare. The last thing we want is to make the same mistake the previous owners made, whatever that was." The team moved deeper into the ship, following the faint guidance of the Guardian's voice, which now resonated from hidden speakers embedded in the walls. "You will need the knowledge," it said, almost as if reading their thoughts. "The vessel's records are sealed. The knowledge of the old empire is within. But beware, it is not meant for your kind." The corridor they navigated twisted and turned, opening up into a vast chamber, its walls adorned with symbols and star maps that stretched across centuries. The designs were unlike any known to humanity, an incomprehensible blend of geometric patterns, organic shapes, and fractals. There was an overwhelming sense of age, a presence of time so vast it made even the crew's experience seem like a fleeting moment. "It's beautiful," whispered Lieutenant Avatores, her voice hushed in reverence. Her hand hovered over a panel embedded in the wall, where the pattern seemed to pulse in rhythm with her touch. "Don't touch anything," Grant ordered firmly, but his eyes betrayed the same sense of awe. The ship was a marvel, an enigma. It had once been the pinnacle of a vast, intergalactic civilization, one that had conquered star systems, perhaps entire galaxies. But what had happened to them? Why had they disappeared? Elena stepped forward, activating a holographic interface that flickered to life at her command. The projection revealed a massive star map, showing vast empires, ancient worlds, and unexplained anomalies. But as the image expanded, a horrifying truth began to emerge. There were no records of the empire's fall. Only fragments, broken pieces of history, like scattered stars in the vast dark. One word repeated itself throughout the data: cataclysm. "Whatever happened to them?" Elena said, her voice tight. "It wasn't a natural disaster. This was a war that destroyed them." As the data began to stream in, the holograms revealed more: a fleet of starships, each more massive than anything humanity had ever conceived, carrying unimaginable weapons and technology. But in the final image, a dark shadow loomed behind them, a terrifying figure, unlike anything seen in the known universe. Its form was nebulous, constantly shifting as though it existed outside the very fabric of space-time. The symbol accompanying it was a simple, yet horrifying one: a shattered star. "This wasn't just a war for territory or power," Elena whispered. "This was a war for survival against something that fed on the very essence of existence." Suddenly, the Guardian's voice interrupted, deepening in tone. "The Empire was destroyed by a force beyond your comprehension. It is returning. And now, it has found you." The walls of the chamber seemed to close in on them, the overwhelming weight of the ship's knowledge bearing down on their shoulders. They had stumbled upon something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The old empire had left behind its legacy, its greatest weapon, and its greatest mistake, and now humanity was caught in the same web. The Guardian's final warning echoed in their minds: "Do not let the history repeat. You are the last hope. Beware the coming storm." The moment the Guardian's final warning reverberated through their minds, the crew's sense of dread intensified. They were no longer explorers. They were pawns in a game far beyond their understanding. The starship's haunting message lingered, its implications now crystal clear. The lost empire, a once great civilization, had been destroyed by a force that not only bent the laws of nature, but threatened to unravel the very fabric of existence. Now, that same force had turned its gaze upon humanity. As the team moved through the massive ship, Elena's mind raced. What was this entity? How had it been capable of such destruction? And most pressing of all, what were they supposed to do about it? They hadn't even begun to understand the ship's technology, let alone the scope of the dangers that awaited them. Their brief respite was shattered by a sharp alarm blaring throughout the ship. A series of urgent, distorted transmissions flooded their comm system, garbled voices speaking in an alien tongue, the words urgent and angry. Then came a burst of static, followed by the voice of the Guardian. "The enemy is here. The invaders are already in your system." Elena froze. Her hand flew to the control panel in front of her, her fingers racing over the keys. The ship's external sensors had been activated, and the readings were clear. An enormous fleet was approaching Earth. "They've found us," she whispered, her voice trembling. Captain Grant's face went pale as he turned toward the rest of the crew. "We don't have much time." The first wave arrived in the outer reaches of the solar system, an armada of ships far larger than anything humanity had ever seen. Some were sleek, angular vessels that hummed with an unnatural energy. Others were grotesque, biomechanical monstrosities, their forms shifting as though alive, as if the ships themselves were a part of their alien occupants. Each one was a testament to the power of the civilizations that had created them. Together, they formed a fleet unlike any the galaxy had ever witnessed. "Look at the size of that fleet," Lieutenant Torres muttered, her voice awestruck as she observed the massive ships on the holographic display. "They're not here to talk." Grant's voice was grim. "They're here to destroy us." Earth's defenses were already being activated, but they were hopelessly outmatched. Humanity's fleet, while advanced, was nothing compared to the alien warships. The best they could hope for was to delay the inevitable. "What do we do?" Torres asked, her voice tight with fear. "We need to stop this before it escalates," Alina said, determination hardening her features. "If they're after the Starship, if they know what it is and what it can do, then we need to make sure they don't get their hands on it." Just as Alina finished speaking, a series of bright flashes appeared on the monitor. Alien warships had deployed their smaller, faster attack crafts, which were now racing toward Earth's outer defenses. The first salvo of energy weapons slammed into the Earth's orbital stations, sparking a chain reaction of explosions. The battle had begun in earnest. "What is that?" one of the engineers on the team asked, pointing to a massive, central ship in the fleet. It was a grotesque, serpentine structure, its surface slick with organic growths, twisting as though it were alive. At its heart, a pulsing energy field seemed to emanate, dark and unnatural. "That's the flagship," Alina said, her voice hollow. "The source of their power. We need to stop it before it reaches Earth." Captain Grant's eyes narrowed. "We have no choice. We're fighting to survive now." The crew quickly made their way back to the docking bay, where their shuttle was prepped for an emergency mission. The ship's AI flickered to life on the control panel, warning them of the grave danger ahead. But there was no turning back. The enemy was here, and humanity's fight for survival was about to get much more personal. The shuttle's engines roared to life as Captain Grant and the crew prepared for what could be their final mission. Alina's mind raced, her thoughts a whirlwind of strategies and possibilities, none of them promising. The alien fleet was already devastating Earth's defenses, and the monstrous flagship was drawing closer with each passing second. "Ready for launch," Lieutenant Torres called from the pilot's seat, her voice tense. Grant gave a curt nod. "Take us to the fleet. We need to disable that flagship. Everything hinges on it." Alina gripped the armrest, her fingers white-knuckled. The shuttle was their only hope of getting close enough to the alien flagship. Humanity's military might have been obliterated in the opening hours of the assault. The ships were too powerful, too numerous, and their energy weapons too advanced. This was not a war of traditional weapons. This was something else, something worse. As the shuttle tore through the atmosphere, Alina's mind returned to the ancient ship. The Guardian had warned them of the impending invasion, but had it also left them with something to fight back? They had only uncovered fragments of the old Empire's technology. There had to be something hidden on that ship, something that could turn the tide in humanity's favor. But where to begin? They were running out of time. "We're nearing the alien fleet," Torres said, her voice steady despite the chaos outside. The holographic interface displayed a devastating scene. Alien ships tearing through the remains of Earth's orbital defense grid, their energy weapons causing massive explosions across space. And in the distance, the massive flagship loomed, its organic surface pulsing ominously. Grant turned to Alina. "You're sure there's something on that starship? Something that can help us stop them?" Alina nodded, but her uncertainty was apparent. "I think so. The Guardian spoke of hidden technologies, weapons, or maybe knowledge the old Empire used to combat the same threat. But I don't know how to access it, or even if it's still functional." "We'll have to figure it out fast," Grant replied. "We don't have the luxury of time." The shuttle moved at breakneck speed toward the alien flagship, narrowly dodging incoming blasts from the alien ships. Each time a blast hit close, the shuttle shuddered, but Torres expertly maneuvered them through the chaos. Their destination was clear. The flagship must be stopped before it could deploy its devastating weaponry on Earth's surface. A blast rocked the shuttle, sending it spiraling for a moment. Alina gripped the seat, her heart pounding. "We can't take another hit like that," she shouted. Torres growled under her breath. "We need to get closer, or we won't have a shot at it." "We don't have a choice," Grant said. "Full speed ahead." As the shuttle raced toward the flagship, Alina's thoughts flickered back to the massive starship they had discovered. It wasn't just a ship, it was a weapon of unimaginable power. Could the same technology that had destroyed the old empire help them now? Could they use it to turn the alien fleet against itself? Suddenly, the flagship's defenses activated, sending a wave of energy pulses toward their shuttle. The air crackled with the sound of the blasts as they neared the massive vessel. "Brace for impact," Grant shouted. The shuttle jerked violently as a blast struck the rear, sending them spiraling toward the alien ship. The crew fought to maintain control, but the gravitational pull of the massive vessel was overwhelming. "Now or never," Alina yelled. She quickly accessed the shuttle's weapons system, targeting a weak point on the flagship's hull that she had spotted in the sensor data. "Firing," Torres shouted. The shuttle fired a concentrated burst of energy directly into the targeted spot. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the ship trembled. The entire flagship seemed to shudder as if it had been struck by a great force. A massive breach opened on its hull, exposing the core. "It's working," Alina shouted, her voice filled with disbelief. "We've weakened its defenses. Now, we need to board." Captain Grant nodded grimly. "Let's end this. We're going in." With a single, determined motion, the crew prepared to board the alien flagship. As they plunged deeper into the alien vessel, Alina could feel the weight of their mission more than ever. It wasn't just Earth's survival on the line. They were now fighting for the future of the entire galaxy. The shuttle slammed into the alien flagship's breach with a deafening thud, the hull groaning as if it were alive. For a moment, the crew was stunned by the impact, the world outside a blur of alien machinery and flashing lights. Alina could feel the vibrations in her bones as the ship's monstrous interior shifted around them. They had made it inside. "Stay sharp," Captain Grant's voice cut through the tension. His eyes were hard, focused, scanning the unfamiliar surroundings. They had no idea what awaited them within this alien vessel, whether it would be traps, sentient defenses, or something worse. The shuttle's hatch opened, and the crew stepped onto the alien ship's surface, their boots making an eerie echo against the smooth organic material beneath them. The interior was unlike anything they had seen before. The walls pulsed with an unsettling energy, alive with shifting patterns and strange symbols. It was a maze of corridors that seemed to bend and twist, disorienting the crew as they moved through it. This wasn't a ship. It was a living organism, its very structure a part of the intelligence that guided it. "Where do we even start?" Lieutenant Torres asked, looking around in disbelief. Alina's eyes darted to the walls, trying to make sense of the alien architecture. "We need to find the central control room, the heart of the ship," she said, her voice steady despite the growing anxiety. "That's where the Guardian said we find the most powerful technologies. If we can shut down the ship's core, we might be able to stop the entire fleet." A flickering light overhead signaled a shift in the atmosphere, and a low hum resonated from the depths of the ship. Alina could feel the ship's pulse in her chest, like it was aware of their presence, watching them, waiting. Suddenly, a harsh mechanical screeching sound echoed through the halls. The ship seemed to awaken further, its walls shifting and warping as though responding to an unseen command. Alina's heart skipped a beat. "We need to move," Grant said, urgency in his tone. "Now." They sprinted down the hallways, navigating the twisted corridors as the ship seemed to come alive around them. The lights flickered and a low rumble echoed through the ship, followed by another series of horrifying screeches that sent waves of fear down their spines. Ahead, they saw a massive chamber with towering doors, each marked with alien symbols. Alina's heart raced. This had to be it, the heart of the beast. As they approached, the doors slowly slid open, revealing an enormous chamber pulsing with an eerie dark energy. At its center stood a massive, shifting core, a pulsating sphere surrounded by veins of energy that seemed to spread throughout the ship's walls like blood through a body. "This is it," Elena whispered, awe and dread filling her voice. The ship's heart was more terrifying than she had imagined. Its energy radiated out, crackling with power. But as they moved closer, an unexpected presence made itself known. From the shadows emerged a figure, tall, thin, and humanoid, but covered in exoskeletal armor, its eyes glowing a faint, unnatural red. It was a soldier, an ancient guardian of the ship, left behind by the Lost Empire. Before anyone could react, the alien guardian spoke in a guttural voice. "You do not belong here. Leave now or be consumed." The crew braced for combat. Elena's heart pounded in her chest, and the weight of their mission felt heavier than ever. This was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a battle against the very force that had nearly destroyed the old empire. And if they failed, humanity would be next. Grant raised his weapon. "We're not leaving. We're ending this, one way or another." The alien guardian tilted its head, almost as if it understood the finality in Grant's words. It drew a blade, its eyes burning with ancient hatred. A battle to the death was about to unfold in the heart of the beast. The alien guardian advanced, its movements fluid and unnatural, like a predator closing in on its prey. The crew braced themselves for what would be their most difficult challenge yet. The tension in the air was thick. This was no mere fight for control. This was a battle for the survival of the human race. Elena's hand shook as she tightened her grip on her weapon. She wasn't sure if it was the alien's presence or the overwhelming sense of urgency that caused her pulse to race. Every second they wasted here was a second closer to the alien fleet reaching Earth. They had to win. They had no other choice. "We need to end this quickly," Grant said through gritted teeth, his eyes locked on the Guardian. He raised his gun, taking aim at the alien figure, but the creature was faster. With a movement so swift it was nearly imperceptible, the Guardian launched itself at him, its blade flashing in the dim light. Grant barely had time to react. He ducked to the side, narrowly avoiding the strike, but the alien's weapon still grazed his arm, tearing through his suit and drawing a line of blood. The captain grunted in pain but didn't falter. "Cover me," he barked. Lieutenant Torres didn't hesitate. She fired a barrage of energy blasts, the shots aimed at the Guardian's exposed side. But the alien seemed to absorb the attacks, the energy dispersing harmlessly across its armored exoskeleton. It was as if the Guardian was invincible, a product of a technology that surpassed human understanding. "We're going to need more firepower," Elena said, her voice tight. She glanced at the pulsating core in the center of the chamber. If they could disrupt it, if they could destabilize it, they might have a chance of stopping the entire ship, and the alien fleet dead in its tracks. "Grant, we need to reach the core," Elena shouted over the din of the battle. Grant, panting from the effort, nodded. He glanced at the alien guardian, who was now circling them like a predator. It was waiting for an opening, its glowing eyes locked on its prey. "Keep it distracted," Grant ordered, his eyes narrowing. "I'll create an opening. We only get one shot." Torres and Elena nodded in unison, already moving. Torres fired another round of energy blasts at the Guardian, each shot a desperate attempt to keep it occupied. Elena sprinted toward the pulsating core, her heart thundering in her chest. She had one chance to make it to the control center, the heart of the beast. But just as Elena was about to reach the core, the Guardian lunged again, slamming into her with enough force to knock her to the ground. Her head collided with the floor, and for a moment, everything spun. Blood trickled from her lip, but she forced herself to focus. The core. She had to reach the core. With everything she had left, Elena pushed herself to her feet and dove toward the central structure. The alien Guardian roared in fury and charge, but before it could reach her, Grant intervened, diving between them and firing point-blank into the creature's chest. The shots were precise, aimed at weak spots in the Guardian's armor. The creature faltered, its body shuddering from the impact. "Now," Grant shouted. Elena slammed her hand down onto a glowing panel at the base of the core. A shockwave erupted from the center of the room as the ship's energy systems flickered and sputtered. For a moment, the entire ship seemed to freeze, as if unsure whether to continue its assault or yield to the human intervention. The alien Guardian staggered back, its glowing eyes narrowing in disbelief. But it wasn't defeated yet. Its roar echoed through the chamber as it lunged one final time, desperate to protect the heart of the ship. The alien Guardian's final roar echoed through the chamber, its body twisting in midair as it lunged toward Elena with the fury of an ancient predator. Time seemed to slow as Elena, heart pounding, slammed her palm against the glowing panel one last time. The ship's core pulsed violently, its veins of energy surging like a heartbeat in the final throes of life. The air around them crackled with a low, almost mournful hum, as if the ship itself recognized the inevitable end. And then, with a deafening crescendo, the entire flagship shuddered. The alien Guardian's charge was halted in mid-lunge, as though the ship itself rejected it. The air distorted around them as the core began to destabilize, releasing waves of energy that washed over the chamber. The walls of the vessel shook violently, and a deep, resonant thrum filled the room, as if the very foundations of the alien empire were crumbling. "Elena, get clear," Captain Grant shouted. But it was too late. The energy from the destabilized core began to tear through the flagship's systems, causing the organic structures of the ship to warp and disintegrate. The chamber itself seemed to collapse inward, the walls peeling back in tendrils of shimmering light and falling debris. Elena scrambled to her feet, her body bruised from the battle. But she didn't hesitate. She had to move. The Guardian, once a terrifying figure of invulnerability, was now struggling against the ship's collapsing walls. Its armor cracked and chipped as if the ship itself was rejecting its presence. It shrieked, its form flickering like a fading hologram, before it vanished into the chaos of the dying ship. "Move, move, move," Torres yelled, her voice urgent, as she grabbed Elena's arm and pulled her toward the shuttle. The ground beneath them rumbled, and the ship groaned in protest as more of its structures buckled and imploded. They reached the shuttle, and Elena barely had time to strap herself in before Torres gunned the engines. The shuttle lurched upward, narrowly avoiding a cascade of falling debris from the collapsing flagship. The ship's massive hull tore apart in slow motion as they zoomed away from the heart of the alien vessel. In the distance, the flagship's massive core detonated, a blinding explosion of energy that sent shockwaves through space. The fleet of alien ships, still in orbit around Earth, began to falter, as if the loss of their flagship had severed their connection to the source of their power. Ships began to break apart or lose their cohesion, scattering across the dark expanse of space. "We did it," Elena whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of relief and disbelief. Grant turned to her, a rare smile creeping across his face despite the exhaustion. "We survived," he said simply. "We stopped them." But the battle wasn't truly over. The alien fleet was in disarray, but Earth wasn't out of danger yet. There was no telling how long it would take for the remaining ships to regroup, or if more forces were still hidden within the dark reaches of space. "Elena," Grant said, his tone serious again. "The Guardian said there were other threats out there, other enemies waiting in the shadows. We've only won a battle, not the war." Elena nodded, her eyes focused on the broken pieces of the flagship in the distance. Humanity had taken its first step into a wider, more dangerous universe. The old empire's ruins had given them a weapon, but it also gave them a glimpse of the greater threats lurking out there, forces that could challenge even the most advanced civilizations. "We'll be ready," she said, her voice resolute. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it, together." As they watched the last remnants of the alien fleet scatter into the void, Elena knew this was just the beginning. The universe was far older and far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. But humanity had survived its first test, and that spark of hope would carry them forward. For now, the galaxy trembled, but humanity stood firm.